Well, this is the basic checklist. It's been around a little bit, as you can see. Normally these reside in your G suit because it doesn't take too long before pretty much everything that you need to know in the cockpit for pre-flight is taken care of automatically. You just know what's there. And you just take a peek down there, make sure that it was clear. Then you're looking at the front gear. Mainly, you want to make sure there's no leaks down there on that piston. Well, that's the pitot tube. And you'd want to make sure this was removed. Little hole there. When you're flying through the air goes in there, and back here it measures the pressure, and that gives you your true airspeed. That is a CBU unit, cluster bomb unit. Bunch of little bomblets in there. When they're released, the air pressure comes in the front and blows them out the back. You'd have an external fuel tank here, and your weapons would be carried like on that pylon there, and a centerline pylon, or you could have a centerline fuel tank. And you get a look under. While we were on the other side there, we should have been checking that strut on that landing gear for leaks. Looking at the tire. They say you should be able to rattle these things. I don't know what good that ever did.
What are those things?
These are the nozzles for the engine, and they're mainly concerned with the afterburner. When the afterburner is not lit, these act like a diaphragm, and they'll compress down to about this size. When the afterburner kicks in, they open up to allow for all that mass to come through, and then they close back down. It was designed by the Navy. The Air Force saw it, said, hey, we could use that. So with a few modifications, the F-4C was built. They always kept the tail hook because they found that on occasion it could help us out too. We had at the end of all of our runways, there was a cable. And if a person came in, for instance, with a hydraulic failure and didn't have brakes, that cable would catch them. You know, unfortunately, because we were constrained from operating our airplanes at maximum performance. The higher-ups in the Air Force were very concerned about their safety records. They didn't want to lose air crews, and otherwise we'd have been flying them harder than we did, and we would have maybe found that they weren't as forgiving as we thought they were. You can refuel as many times as you want to. I think the longest I ever flew was 13 hours. You got a KC-135 that you rendezvous with, and then one by one you pull up under the KC-135, and you pop a little door on the back here on top of this airplane, and he pokes you with a big tube and fills you up with gas. Well, on the left side here you got a panel that you can't see that's got the throttles. So your left hand's down there, your right hand is here on the stick. Well, this is a trim button. It controls subtle changes in your flight your ailerons, your elevator. As your speed changes through the air, so the dynamics shift on the airplane as your weight changes. And you control it all with that button. It's going it's going almost all the time, like this. Just trying to keep all the pressure's off the stick. If it's well trimmed, you can take your hand off the stick and it'll fly straight and level. Here's your radar screen. You have a screen about this big. The guy in the back seat's got one about like this. When he acquires a target back there, you'll see everything up here on this screen, along with some other information regarding, are you in parameters for the weapon that you have selected, whether it be a Sparrow or a Sidewinder, and where the target is, what your closure rate is. Little dots going to guide you, and if it's within this circle, you're cleared to fire. Underneath, if you can see it right there, there's a little projector. That projector shines up onto this glass, and to you it appears to be a circle, and in the circle in the center, that is a dot, and that's an aim point. That's used to aim your guns, aim your rockets, aim your bombs. Here's your bomb button. And in front of this is a trigger for the gun. Now, if you're refueling, this button will give you an automatic breakaway. If something goes wrong or you're not comfortable or whatever, and you want to release, use this one. That's got the wonderful name. It's called the Guillotine. Let's say you're sitting on the ground, you're all strapped in, and there's a mortar attack, and you want to get out in a hurry. The first thing you do is you grab this handle, pull it up. It cuts all the straps. You got leg straps on, you got a lap belt, you got shoulder harness for your parachute. All of those are cut. If your canopy is closed, you pull, the canopy will blow off, you stand up and walk out of the airplane. There are two ways to eject from this airplane. The first one's right here between your legs. See that yellow handle? Mm-hmm. Okay, in a high G situation where it's hard to get your hands up, you reach down, you pull that, and you'll eject. Now, conversely, let's say you're at high altitude, high speed, going straight and level. You reach back here, grab your handles, pull forward and down, and it pulls a screen down over your face mask to this position, and you go to final pull, and it will eject you. And you have the virtue of having an extra screen in front of your face for high-speed ejection. The greatest lesson I ever had in flying was one day we were starting basic instruments, and of course I was chasing all the instruments, and my instructor said, "Fletcher, stop. Don't move the stick." And I stopped, and all the instruments stopped. Now that's a lesson, a beautiful lesson. When you roll out of the chocks in an F-4, it's like you're in a big bundle of muscle. So by the time you get into a combat situation, you really don't think too much about what the problems are as far as am I going to die or not. That's somewhere else. You got a job to do, and in a way, as everybody knows, as a flyer, you're relatively detached from the environment where your weapons land, for instance. it becomes a little more personal when the anti-aircraft guns open up and you're going down on your bomb run and pulling out on your bomb run, and all the time you get these little flashes, black smoke going every place. It's not too bad there, but when it gets up here, you got problem. Well, that's about as close as you get, and you can't hear it. You just see it. So what we would do, we'd fly up there with a load of bombs and missiles, like 10 750-pound bombs, missiles. We'd go up and we'd find our target and we'd bomb it, and then we'd go up and orbit. And the MiGs didn't want anything to do with us. At that point, we were an unknown factor, and they stayed away from us. They'd go, either they wouldn't fly, or they'd go up to the Chinese border and orbit, do some training, and then when we were gone, they'd come back and land. We also were flying in the south, mainly trying to interdict the Ho Chi Minh Trail. You have to remember, we're talking 1965, which was really the early days of the buildup. And then I was there in '66. During that period, I think people still had thoughts that we can make this deal work. After that, in the later years, I think is when people's opinions began to shift a little bit, and it became more obvious the direction things were going. We came back, landed one time, and we're taxiing into the parking place, and the crew chief is out there giving us the, and his head's going like this. Well, we had 52 holes in the side of the airplane, and we didn't even know it. One of my best friends in pilot training, a guy named Barry Bridger, his flight got hit by a SAM, and his airplane went down. He spent 4.5, 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton. Well, all we heard is that he'd been shot down. And I think, thinking back on it, my initial reaction was rather just being numb. It's a loss. When I think of those dumb iron bombs that we were dropping up north, releasing at 5,000 feet on a target the size of a bridge, collateral damage, it's sad. It is absolutely sad. I just wish it would be fun if everybody in the United States that wanted to could get a ride in the back seat of one of these things. Open up their eyes a little bit, give them something to think about.